The night is quiet. A soft wind moves slowly across a wide river, carrying the faint scent of wet earth and reeds. The water flows without hurry, just as it has always done, gliding through the land with a steady, patient rhythm. This river is the Nile. Along its dark surface, the moon rests gently, its reflection broken only by the smallest ripples. The banks are still. The fields nearby lie silent under the night sky, waiting. In the distance, a small village sleeps. The homes are simple. Low walls made of mud brick hold the warmth of the day. Roofs are flat and quiet. Inside, families rest on woven mats, their breathing slow and even. A faint glow from a dying oil lamp lingers in one corner, then fades. Nothing feels rushed here. Nothing needs to change. And in many ways, it does not. For centuries, life along the Nile moves in the same quiet patterns. The same rising sun. The same flowing river. The same careful hands shaping clay, weaving linen, grinding grain. Time passes, but gently. So gently that it almost feels still. This is how ancient Egyptians live. Not in sudden shifts or sharp turns, but in steady repetition. Day after day, season after season, generation after generation. The world around them remains familiar, comforting, unchanged. And so, as the night slowly gives way to the first pale light of morning, life begins again, just as it always has. A soft gray glow spreads across the eastern sky. The stars fade one by one, disappearing quietly. The air is cool for a brief moment, holding a calm that will not last long once the sun rises higher. A rooster calls somewhere in the village. Then another. A man stirs inside a small house. He wakes not with alarm, but with habit. His body already knows the rhythm of the day. He sits up slowly, listening to the quiet sounds around him. Beside him, his family still sleeps. He steps outside. The ground beneath his feet is cool. The sky is now a pale blue, and the edge of the sun begins to show. The river reflects the growing light, its surface turning from black to silver. He walks toward the fields. This path is not new. It has been walked countless times before. By him. By his father. By many before them, whose names are no longer spoken, but whose footsteps shape the same earth. There is comfort in this repetition. The land is already known. Every bend in the path. Every patch of soil. Every tree. Nothing surprises him. And that is how life remains steady. The Nile begins to rise and fall with the seasons, just as it always has. Its waters bring rich soil from far away, spreading it across the fields. This cycle does not change. It is trusted. It is expected. It is everything. The man reaches his field as the sun lifts higher. The light is soft, golden, gentle on the eyes. He kneels and presses his hand into the soil. It is dark and moist, ready. He begins his work. There is no rush in his movements. Each action follows the one before it, slow and practiced. He uses simple tools. Wood. Stone. Rope. Nothing complicated. Nothing unfamiliar. Nearby, another farmer works in the same way. They do not speak much. They do not need to. Their lives are similar. Their days unfold in the same pattern. The same tasks, the same timing, the same quiet understanding. In the village, others begin to wake. A woman rises and prepares grain for the morning meal. She uses a flat stone to grind it into flour. The sound is soft and steady, a gentle scraping that fills the small space. She has done this every day. Her mother did the same. And her mother before that. Water is carried from the river in clay jars. The path is familiar, worn smooth by years of footsteps. The jars are balanced carefully, with skill learned over time. Children begin to stir. They do not hurry either. Their world is already known to them. The same homes. The same faces. The same routines. They grow into a life that has already been shaped long before they were born. And so, nothing feels uncertain. The morning continues. Bread is baked over small fires. The smell rises into the air, warm and simple. It mixes with the scent of the river and the dry earth. The sun climbs higher. Shadows grow shorter. The heat begins to settle over the land, slow but certain. Work continues in the fields. Seeds are placed into the soil. Water is guided through small channels. Everything is done with care, following methods that do not change. There is no need to change them. They work. They have always worked. That is enough. The rhythm of the day holds steady. And in this steady rhythm, life feels secure. No one expects sudden difference. No one looks for something new. Instead, there is peace in knowing what will come next. The river will flow. The crops will grow. The sun will rise and fall. And tomorrow will feel very much like today. This sameness is not seen as a limitation. It is a kind of quiet strength. A way of living that does not depend on constant change. Instead, it rests on balance. On repetition. On trust in the world as it is. And so, as the morning slowly becomes midday, the village continues its gentle motion, unchanged, unhurried, and deeply familiar. The sun rises higher, and the light becomes stronger. The soft gold of early morning slowly fades into a brighter white. The air grows warmer, though it does so gently, without sudden change. The land seems to accept it quietly, just as it has done every day before. In the fields, the farmers continue their work. Their movements remain steady. There is no need for speed. Each task is already understood. Each motion has been repeated so many times that it no longer requires thought. Hands move almost on their own, guided by memory. A man lifts a wooden tool and presses it into the soil. He pauses, then repeats the motion. Again and again. The rhythm is slow, almost like breathing. Nearby, water flows through narrow channels cut into the earth. It moves carefully, guided by small ridges of soil shaped by hand. The water spreads out, soaking the ground evenly. This method is not new. It has been used for generations. It does not need to be improved. It only needs to be continued. The Nile itself remains calm. Its surface now shines under the stronger sun, reflecting the wide sky above. Small boats drift slowly along its path. Their sails hang loosely when the wind is still, then gently fill when a soft breeze passes through. A fisherman stands in one of these boats. He casts a net into the water with a smooth, practiced motion. The net spreads out, then sinks. He waits. There is patience in this waiting. There always has been. He does not expect the river to behave differently today. The fish will come as they always have. The water will move as it always does. Time feels wide here. Unrushed. Unbroken. Back in the village, the sounds of daily life continue to grow. The grinding of grain goes on steadily. The soft crackle of small fires fills the air. Clay pots are lifted, moved, set down again. Each sound is gentle, blending into a quiet rhythm that feels almost like a song without words. A woman kneads dough with slow, careful hands. She presses, folds, and presses again. The motion is simple. Repeated. Familiar. Her fingers know exactly how the dough should feel. There is no need to measure or adjust. She shapes the bread and places it near the heat. It will bake as it always does. Not too quickly. Not too slowly. Just enough. Children sit nearby, watching. They learn without being told. By seeing. By listening. By being present in the same space where these tasks are done every day. There is no formal teaching. There does not need to be. Life itself is the lesson. A young boy picks up a small piece of clay. He turns it in his hands, pressing his fingers into its soft surface. He watches an older man shape a larger piece nearby, forming a pot with smooth, steady motions. The boy tries to do the same. His shape is uneven. It leans slightly to one side. But that does not matter. There is time. There is always time. He will try again tomorrow. And the day after. And slowly, without noticing, his hands will learn. In another part of the village, a group of women walk together toward the river. They carry empty jars, their steps even and unhurried. The path beneath them is dry and firm, marked by countless journeys just like this one. They do not speak loudly. Their voices are soft, blending with the quiet sounds around them. A few words are shared, then silence returns. It is a comfortable silence. They reach the water. The Nile moves gently beside them, its edge lined with reeds that sway lightly in the breeze. The women kneel and lower their jars, letting them fill slowly. The water is cool. Clear enough. It has always been enough. They lift the jars again, balancing them with care, and begin the walk back. Nothing about this moment feels new. And that is what makes it feel steady. Above them, the sun continues its slow path across the sky. There is no urgency in its movement. It does not rush toward evening. It simply moves, as it always has. Midday approaches. The heat grows stronger now, pressing down softly but firmly. Work in the fields begins to slow. Not because it is finished, but because the body knows when to rest. The farmers step back from their tasks. They sit in the shade when they can find it. Under a small tree. Beside a wall. Near the edge of a structure that casts a narrow line of shadow. They drink water. They breathe. No one speaks of schedules. No one watches the time. The body understands what to do. This understanding has been passed down quietly, without words. Rest comes in the middle of the day. Work resumes when the heat softens. This pattern does not change. And so it is trusted. In the village, the pace also slows. The fires burn lower. The sounds become softer. Even the animals seem to rest, lying still in the shade, their breathing slow and calm. The air feels heavy, but not uncomfortable. Just still. Very still. In this stillness, nothing feels uncertain. There is no need to think about tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the same. The river will still be there. The fields will still need tending. The bread will still need to be made. And so, the present moment is enough. Time continues to pass, but it does so quietly. Almost unnoticed. And in this quiet passing of time, life remains unchanged. Not frozen. But steady. Held in place by habit, by nature, by trust. As the sun begins, very slowly, to move past its highest point, the shadows begin to return. At first, they are faint. Then they stretch a little longer. The heat eases, just slightly. And with that change, small and gentle, the village begins to stir again. Not suddenly. Not all at once. But little by little, movement returns. A man stands and walks back toward the field. A woman adds wood to a fire. A child runs a short distance, then slows again. Everything resumes. As it always does. In the same way. At the same pace. Without change. The afternoon light softens almost without notice. At first, it is only a small change. The brightness eases. The edges of things grow less sharp. A gentle warmth replaces the stronger heat of midday, and the land seems to breathe again. In the fields, the farmers return fully to their work. They do not rush to make up for lost time. There is no sense of falling behind. The work belongs to the day, and the day still has hours left to give. Hands move once more through the soil. A man bends slightly as he clears a narrow channel, guiding water toward a row of young plants. The water follows the path he has made, slipping quietly into place, soaking into the ground with quiet purpose. He watches it for a moment. Then he moves on. Nothing about this task is uncertain. The same care, the same motion, the same expectation. It has always been enough. Nearby, another farmer adjusts a simple wooden tool. The wood is worn smooth from years of use. Its shape has not changed. It does not need to. He grips it in the same way his father once did. And his father before him. There is no need to improve what is already understood. In the distance, a pair of oxen move slowly across a field, guided by a steady hand. Their pace is calm, measured, without strain. The earth turns beneath them in quiet lines, each one placed beside the last. The pattern repeats. Line after line. Season after season. The work continues. And it always will. Along the Nile, the water carries on its endless journey. A small boat drifts closer to the shore. The fisherman lifts his net, water slipping through its threads. A few fish remain, caught without struggle. He gathers them carefully, placing them into a basket at his feet. There is no disappointment. No surprise. Only acceptance. The river gives what it gives. And that is enough. The boat turns slowly, guided by a gentle push of a pole against the riverbed. The fisherman begins his quiet return, the surface of the water parting softly as he moves. The river remains unchanged. It does not hurry. It does not pause. It simply flows. Back in the village, the sounds of activity begin to rise again. Fires are stirred back to life. Small flames grow, fed by dry pieces of wood. The scent of smoke drifts lightly through the air, mixing with the fading warmth of the day. A woman lifts a clay pot and pours water into it. She adds grain. Then stirs. Her movements are slow, careful, certain. She does not need to think about each step. Her hands remember what to do, just as they always have. Nearby, another woman prepares vegetables, cutting them into small pieces with a simple blade. The cuts are even, steady, without hesitation. These tasks are not new. They do not change. And because of this, they feel easy. Familiar. Comforting. Children move through the open spaces between the houses. Their steps are light, their voices soft. They do not wander far. There is no need. Everything they know is here. A young girl carries a small bundle of reeds. She sets them down beside an older woman, who begins to weave them together into a simple mat. The girl watches closely. Her eyes follow each movement. She will learn this, just as all the others have. Not through instruction, but through quiet observation, through repetition, through time. In another corner of the village, a man shapes clay on a simple wheel. His foot turns it slowly, again and again, keeping the motion steady. His hands guide the clay upward, forming smooth sides. The shape rises. Even. Balanced. He pauses for a moment, then adjusts the edge with gentle pressure. The pot is nearly complete. It looks much like the ones he made yesterday. And the day before. And many days before that. There is no desire to make it different. Difference is not needed. Consistency is what matters. The sun continues its slow descent. The light grows warmer once again, returning to a softer gold. Shadows stretch across the ground, long and quiet, reaching toward the edges of the village. The heat fades further. A breeze begins to move through the air, gentle and steady. It brushes against the walls of the homes, stirs the leaves of nearby trees, and passes softly over the surface of the river. The land begins to cool. The pace of work slows again. Not because it must end suddenly, but because it naturally comes to a close. The body knows when enough has been done. A farmer stands and looks over his field. There is no need to measure progress. He can see it. He can feel it. It is the same quiet satisfaction that comes at the end of each day. Not pride. Not excitement. Just a calm sense that the work has been completed as it should be. He turns and begins the walk back. The path is familiar beneath his feet. Each step follows the last without thought. The village draws closer. The sounds of evening begin to gather. Soft voices. The clink of clay pots. The gentle movement of animals returning to their places. Everything settles into a new rhythm. One that comes at the end of the day. But is just as familiar as the one that began it. As he reaches his home, the light has softened even more. The sky begins to shift in color. Pale blue fades into warmer tones. Hints of orange and pink appear near the horizon, blending slowly, without sharp lines. The river reflects these colors, turning them into long, moving patterns across its surface. Inside the home, a small meal is prepared. Bread is broken. Food is shared. There is no rush. No noise. Just quiet presence. The family sits together, close but without crowding. The space is simple, but it holds everything they need. They eat slowly. The taste is familiar. It does not change. And because it does not change, it brings comfort. Outside, the light continues to fade. The sky grows deeper. The first signs of evening appear. And with them, the same calm ending that has come, unchanged, for countless days before. The evening settles slowly over the land. There is no sudden shift, no sharp ending to the day. Instead, the light gently fades, as if it is carefully stepping away, leaving everything in a softer, quieter state. The sky deepens in color. Warm tones of gold and pale orange begin to dim, blending into shades of purple and soft blue. The horizon holds the last light a little longer, stretching it thin across the edge of the world. Along the Nile, the surface of the water grows darker again. The bright reflections of the afternoon disappear, replaced by long, quiet shadows. The river continues to move, unchanged, carrying its steady rhythm into the night. In the village, small fires glow more clearly now. Their light flickers against the walls of the homes, casting gentle patterns that shift and move. The air cools, just enough to bring relief after the long warmth of the day. People gather close to these small sources of light. Not in large groups. Not in loud conversation. Just in quiet company. A man sits near the entrance of his home, his back resting lightly against the wall. His hands are still now, the work of the day complete. He watches the fading light without speaking. There is nothing he needs to say. Nothing he needs to plan. Tomorrow will come as it always does. Inside, a woman adjusts a clay pot near the fire. The food has been shared, but the warmth remains. She moves slowly, placing things back where they belong, restoring the simple order of the space. Each item has its place. Each task has its time. This order does not change. And because of that, it is easy to keep. Children grow quieter as the evening deepens. Their movements slow. Their voices soften. One by one, they settle close to their families, leaning against familiar shapes, resting in the comfort of what they know. There are no bright lights here. Only the soft glow of flame. Only the fading light of the sky. And soon, only the gentle presence of the night. Above, the first stars begin to appear. They do not rush into view. They arrive slowly, one at a time, small points of light in the growing darkness. The sky opens wide above the village, vast and calm, unchanged from night to night. These stars are familiar. They have always been there. Seen by countless eyes across countless years. Their patterns do not shift. Their presence is steady. Just like everything else. A faint breeze moves through the village. It carries the scent of earth, of water, of cooling stone. It passes quietly through open doorways, over rooftops, across resting fields. Nothing resists it. Nothing needs to. The land accepts the night as it accepted the day. With calm. With stillness. One by one, the small fires begin to fade. Not all at once. Each one slowly lowers, the flames growing smaller, the light becoming softer. Shadows deepen, blending together until the shapes of things become less clear. The village does not disappear. It simply rests. A family lies down on woven mats. Their bodies settle into familiar positions. The space is shared, but not crowded. Each person knows where to be, how to rest, how to be still. There is no need for comfort beyond this. No need for change. The rhythm of the day has led them here. And it will lead them again tomorrow. Outside, the Nile continues its quiet flow. It does not pause for night. It does not change its pace. It moves forward in the same steady way, carrying water through the darkness, just as it does in the light. Its presence is constant. Reliable. Endless. A distant sound rises for a moment. Perhaps the call of a night bird. Perhaps the soft movement of an animal near the water's edge. Then it fades again. Silence returns. But it is not empty silence. It is full. Full of small, gentle sounds that do not disturb, only remind. The quiet ripple of water. The faint rustle of leaves. The slow breathing of those at rest. Time continues to pass. But here, it does not feel heavy. It does not press forward. It simply flows, just like the river. Unnoticed. Unchanged. The stars grow brighter as the sky darkens fully. Their light reflects faintly on the Nile, small points shimmering on the moving surface. The village lies beneath them, still and quiet, held gently in the night. This moment has happened before. It will happen again. Not exactly the same, but close enough that it feels unchanged. That is how life continues here. Not through sudden difference, but through quiet repetition. Through patterns that hold steady over time. Through days that begin and end in the same gentle way. And so, as the night deepens, and the land rests fully, everything returns to stillness. The same stillness that came before. The same stillness that will come again. And within that stillness, life remains. Calm. Steady. Unchanged. The night continues, deep and unbroken. The village rests without movement, held gently beneath the wide sky. The stars remain steady above, their quiet light unchanged, their patterns familiar in a way that does not need to be spoken. The Nile flows beside the sleeping land. Its surface is darker now, yet still alive with soft motion. The water moves with the same calm rhythm it carried through the day, untouched by the stillness around it. There is no boundary between day and night here. Only a slow shifting of light. Only a quiet turning. Time passes, but it does not disturb anything. Inside the homes, breathing remains slow and even. Bodies rest without tension. The warmth stored in the mud brick walls lingers, releasing itself gradually into the cooler air. Nothing feels uncertain. Nothing feels new. The night holds everything in a steady calm. Hours move quietly. Uncounted. Unmeasured. Until, far in the distance, a very faint change begins. It is almost too small to notice at first. A soft thinning of the darkness along the edge of the horizon. The stars near that edge begin to fade. Not suddenly, but slowly. One by one. The sky begins to shift again. The deep black softens into dark blue. The shapes of the land, once hidden, begin to return, though still dim and quiet. The Nile reflects this change first. A faint line of gray appears across its surface, stretching gently along the water. The river does not react. It continues as it always has, carrying the same calm presence into the early moments of a new day. In the village, there is still no movement. But the change is coming. It always comes. The air feels slightly cooler now, touched by the last breath of night. A soft breeze moves once more, passing over the fields, brushing lightly against the still forms of plants and trees. Then, somewhere in the distance, a sound. A single call. Low. Simple. It does not break the silence. It becomes part of it. Another sound follows. Then another. Small signals that the night is ending. The cycle continues. Inside one of the homes, a man stirs. Not fully awake. Just beginning to return. His body senses the change in light, the shift in air, the quiet signals that the day is near. He does not open his eyes immediately. There is no need to hurry. The day will come. It always does. After a moment, he sits up slowly. The space around him is dim but visible now. The shapes of the room are familiar, unchanged from the day before. Nothing has moved. Nothing is different. He steps outside. The ground beneath his feet feels cool again, just as it did the morning before. The sky holds a pale glow along the horizon, soft and gradual. The Nile reflects this early light, its surface turning gently from dark to silver once more. It is the same beginning. Again. And again. A woman rises inside another home. She moves quietly, careful not to disturb the others who still rest. Her hands begin their work almost immediately, reaching for the tools and materials she will use. There is no pause to decide what to do. There is no need to think. The day has already been shaped by countless days before it. She begins to grind grain. The soft, steady sound returns, just as it always does at this hour. It fills the space with a quiet rhythm, one that belongs to the morning. This sound has marked the beginning of the day for generations. It does not change. It does not need to. Outside, more people begin to wake. One by one. Slowly. Naturally. There is no signal that calls them all at once. Only the gentle pull of habit. The same paths are walked again. From home to river. From home to field. From rest to work. The same footprints press into the same earth. The same hands reach for the same tools. Everything begins again in the same way. And because it begins the same way, its light spreads across the land, touching the fields, the river, the village. It warms the earth slowly, just as it did the day before, and the day before that. Nothing in its path resists. Nothing expects it to be different. The farmers return to their fields. The fishermen return to the river. The women return to their work. The children return to watching, learning, growing within the same patterns that have always existed. There is no sense of repetition as something tiring. It is simply life. A steady flow. A quiet rhythm. A pattern that holds everything in place. The Nile begins its daily reflection once more. The sky above. The light of the sun. The movement of small boats. All of it appears again, just as it always has. And so, the day unfolds. Not as something new, but as something known. Something expected. Something that has already been lived many times before. And in that knowing, there is a deep calm. A quiet assurance that nothing will change. That everything will continue. Just as it always has. The same morning. The same work. The same gentle passage of time. Again. And again. And again. The morning settles in fully now. The light becomes steady and clear, spreading across the land in a soft, even way. Shadows shorten once more, and the world feels open again, familiar in every direction. The village is awake. Not suddenly. Not loudly. But in its usual slow unfolding. Smoke rises gently from small fires as breakfast is prepared. The scent of grain, warmed over flame, drifts through the air. It mixes with the smell of dry earth and river water, creating something simple and constant. People move through their tasks without hurry. Each movement is shaped by repetition. Each action is guided by memory. A farmer checks the edge of a field where the soil meets a narrow irrigation channel. He presses the ground lightly with his foot, feeling its dampness. It is correct. It is as it should be. He does not need to adjust much. The system is already working. It has been working for a long time. Farther along the river, boats are already moving again. They follow the same paths as always, drifting along familiar currents. A fisherman adjusts his net, pulling it in slowly after a short cast. The water slips through the threads, leaving only what remains. The river offers its quiet gifts, and takes nothing in return that cannot be given again. In the village, a small group gathers near a low wall of sun-dried brick. They sit close to one another, sharing food in simple portions. The meal is not large. It does not need to be. It is enough to begin the day, enough to sustain the work ahead. There is little conversation. Not because words are absent, but because they are not always necessary. Silence here is not emptiness. It is comfort. A young child leans against an adult's side, holding a piece of bread in both hands. The bread is warm, slightly uneven in shape, made in the same way it has always been made. The child eats slowly, watching, listening, learning without effort. Nearby, an older man repairs a simple tool. His hands move carefully over wood and fiber. He tightens a binding, checks its strength, then nods slightly. There is no need for more than this. Tools are maintained, not replaced. Used, not discarded. Things are made to last. Just like the routines that shape the day. As the morning continues, the fields begin to fill again with movement. The farmers return fully to their work. The soil is familiar beneath them. Its texture, its weight, its color after water has passed through it. There is no mystery in it. Only understanding. A man draws a line through the earth with a wooden tool, guiding water into a new section. The flow responds slowly, obediently, spreading out across the soil. He watches for a moment, then moves on. There is no need to stay longer. Everything is as expected. Above him, the sky remains open and calm. No clouds gather in urgency. No sudden weather breaks the rhythm of the day. The air remains steady, warm but not overwhelming. The Nile continues its slow presence beside everything. It does not change its direction. It does not alter its pace. It simply moves, as it always has, and as it always will. Time in this place does not feel divided into sharp pieces. It feels continuous. Like water. Like breath. Like the repetition of daily life. A woman walks along a familiar path carrying a woven basket. Inside are small bundles of plants gathered from nearby fields. Her steps are even, measured, unhurried. She knows this path well. Every turn, every stone, every shaded place where the air feels cooler. She does not need to look down often. Her body already remembers. Children follow at a distance, playing quietly as they move. Their voices rise briefly, then fade again. Even play here follows rhythm. Even laughter blends into the larger stillness of life. Nothing feels separate. Everything belongs to the same slow flow. By midday, the heat begins to build again, gently at first. The land prepares, as it always does, for the familiar pause. Work slows without being stopped. Movement becomes lighter. Rest begins to form naturally within the structure of the day. There is no command for this. It simply happens. A man sits under the shade of a tree, his back resting against its trunk. He closes his eyes for a moment. Not to escape anything. Just to pause within the rhythm. The breeze moves through the leaves above him. Soft. Steady. Repeating its quiet pattern. The river continues beside him, reflecting the sky in a long, moving line. Everything remains in place. Everything continues. Without interruption. Without change. And in this continuing, there is a deep and quiet sense of order. A world that does not need to become different in order to feel complete. A life that does not search for newness in every moment. But instead, rests in what is already known. What is already enough. The day moves forward slowly. As it always does. Step by step. Moment by moment. Into the same gentle pattern that has held it for generations. The afternoon begins its slow return toward evening. It is not marked by anything sudden. There is no clear moment when the change happens. Instead, it arrives quietly, the way most things do in this land. The light softens again. The sharp brightness of midday slowly loosens into something warmer, gentler. Shadows begin to stretch out once more, reaching farther across the ground, as if the world is preparing itself to rest. In the fields, movement continues, but at a slower rhythm. The farmers do not stop immediately. They simply shift. Their pace becomes lighter, their actions less forceful. The hardest part of the day has already passed. A man pauses at the edge of a row of plants. He looks over what has been done. There is no need to measure it. No need to count or compare. The field itself shows the work clearly. The land is familiar in its response. It always reflects effort in the same quiet way. He adjusts a small line of soil, then stands. His body knows the day is changing. Farther away, water still moves through the channels carved into the earth. But now the flow seems calmer, as if it too is slowing with the afternoon light. The Nile remains steady beside it all. Unchanged. Unhurried. Its surface reflects the sky in a softer tone now, the bright silver of earlier hours giving way to deeper shades. Boats continue to pass, but fewer than before. Their movement is unforced, natural, as if carried more by habit than decision. A fisherman pulls in his net again. This time, the weight is lighter. He does not react with surprise. Only acceptance. Some days give more. Some days give less. The river is never expected to be the same in detail. Only in presence. Always there. Always moving. Back in the village, the sound of daily life continues to soften. Fires are still lit, but they burn lower now. Cooking continues, but with less urgency. The smell of food drifts through the air, mixing with the dry warmth of late afternoon. A woman sits beside a low structure, weaving reeds together. Her hands move in a slow, practiced pattern. Over, under. Over, under. Each motion is the same as the last, yet each one must still be done. There is comfort in that repetition. It fills the time without needing to be filled with thought. Nearby, a child watches closely. Not speaking. Only observing the rhythm of the hands, the way the reeds bend and form into shape. Something useful is being made. Something that will last. This is how knowledge moves forward here. Quietly. Without instruction that feels separate from life. The sun begins to lower further now. Not quickly, but steadily. The land takes on a deeper tone as the light shifts again. Gold becomes amber. Then soft orange. Then a fading warmth that rests gently on everything it touches. The air cools slightly. A small but welcome change after the long heat. People begin to gather their things. Not because they are told to, but because they recognize the moment. Work is ending for the day. This understanding is shared without words. A farmer walks back from the field carrying simple tools over his shoulder. His steps are unhurried. The ground beneath him is familiar in every way. He could walk this path with his eyes closed. And in many ways, he almost does. The village begins to feel more still again. Not empty. Just calmer. More settled. The sounds of movement decrease. The sounds of rest increase. Even the wind seems to slow as it moves through the trees and across the river. The Nile reflects the evening sky more clearly now. The colors deepen again, preparing for night. Long reflections stretch across its surface, shifting gently with every small movement of water. A boat drifts near the shore. It is nearly still now, held by the quiet current. The fisherman inside sits without motion, watching the last light of the day. There is no need to rush back. The return is already understood. As the sun lowers closer to the horizon, the sky begins its familiar transformation. The brightness softens. The edges of the world blur slightly. Everything feels closer, quieter, as if the land itself is drawing inward. In the village, people return to their homes. One by one. Without urgency. A family gathers again in a small space warmed by earlier fires. Food is shared once more. The same simple meal patterns as always. Bread. Grain. Water. Whatever the day has offered. There is no change in what is eaten. Only in the way the day has led to this moment. A calm pause. A shared rest. Outside, the light continues to fade. The sky shifts slowly toward evening colors again. The same colors as before. The same rhythm. The same passage. Nothing in this moment asks to be different from the one before it. And so it is not. The day moves toward its end in the same gentle way it always has. Not ending sharply, but dissolving softly into night. Evening arrives slowly. This time, the weight is lighter. He does not react with surprise. Only acceptance. Some days give more. Some days give less. The river is never expected to be the same in detail. Only in presence. Always there. Always moving. Back in the village, the sound of daily life continues to soften. Fires are still lit, but they burn lower now. Cooking continues, but with less urgency. The smell of food drifts through the air, mixing with the dry warmth of late afternoon. A woman sits beside a low structure, weaving reeds together. Her hands move in a slow, practiced pattern. Over, under. Over, under. Each motion is the same as the last, yet each one must still be done. There is comfort in that repetition. It fills the time without needing to be filled with thought. Nearby, a child watches closely. Not speaking. Only observing the rhythm of the hands, the way the reeds bend and form into shape. Something useful is being made. Something that will last. This is how knowledge moves forward here. Quietly. Without instruction that feels separate from life. The sun begins to lower further now. Not quickly, but steadily. The land takes on a deeper tone as the light shifts again. Gold becomes amber. Then soft orange. Then a fading warmth that rests gently on everything it touches. The air cools slightly. A small but welcome change after the long heat. People begin to gather their things. Not because they are told to, but because they recognize the moment. Work is ending for the day. This understanding is shared without words. A farmer walks back from the field carrying simple tools over his shoulder. His steps are unhurried. The ground beneath him is familiar in every way. He could walk this path with his eyes closed. And in many ways, he almost does. The village begins to feel more still again. Not empty. Just calmer. More settled. The sounds of movement decrease. The sounds of rest increase. Even the wind seems to slow as it moves through the trees and across the river. The Nile reflects the evening sky more clearly now. The colors deepen again, preparing for night. Long reflections stretch across its surface, shifting gently with every small movement of water. A boat drifts near the shore. It is nearly still now, held by the quiet current. The fisherman inside sits without motion, watching the last light of the day. There is no need to rush back. The return is already understood. As the sun lowers closer to the horizon, the sky begins its familiar transformation. The brightness softens. The edges of the world blur slightly. Everything feels closer, quieter, as if the land itself is drawing inward. In the village, people return to their homes. One by one. Without urgency. A family gathers again in a small space warmed by earlier fires. Food is shared once more. The same simple meal patterns as always. Bread. Grain. Water. Whatever the day has offered. There is no change in what is eaten. Only in the way the day has led to this moment. A calm pause. A shared rest. Outside, the light continues to fade. The sky shifts slowly toward evening colors again. The same colors as before. The same rhythm. The same passage. Nothing in this moment asks to be different from the one before it. And so it is not. The day moves toward its end in the same gentle way it always has. Not ending sharply, but dissolving softly into night. Evening arrives slowly, the way it always does here. There is no clear moment where day becomes night. Instead, the light simply thins, as if it is gently being drawn away from the land, leaving behind softer shapes and quieter colors. The village settles deeper into calm. Fires glow more clearly now, small points of warmth against the cooling air. Their light flickers across walls made of earth, across woven mats, across faces that have grown still with the end of work. The Nile grows darker again. But it does not disappear. Even in the dimming light, it remains present. A moving line of quiet water, carrying the memory of the day within its surface. The reflection of the sky fades, but the river itself continues, unchanged in its path. Inside the homes, the rhythm of the evening takes hold. A family sits together in a small circle of light. There is no ceremony to this moment. Only habit. Only familiarity. Food is eaten slowly. Bread is broken and shared. Water is passed from hand to hand. The actions are simple, repeated, and steady. No one rushes. There is nowhere to rush toward. The day has already completed its path. Outside, the sounds of the village become softer. Footsteps fade into stillness. Voices lower. Even the animals seem to settle more deeply into rest, their movements less frequent, their presence quiet. A man sits near the entrance of his home, watching the sky. It has changed again. The warm tones of sunset have nearly disappeared now, replaced by deepening blue. The first stars begin to return, faint at first, then slowly clearer as the light continues to fade. He has seen this transition every day of his life. And yet it never feels exactly the same. Not because it changes in form, but because time itself continues to move through it. The same sky. The same stars. The same return of night. In the distance, the river reflects the growing darkness. Small ripples catch what little light remains, breaking it into soft fragments that come and go with the water's movement. A boat rests near the shore now. No longer moving. Its journey for the day complete. The fisherman inside sits quietly, hands still, looking out across the water. There is nothing left to gather. Nothing left to guide. Only the return. He will go home soon. But not in haste. The night is not something to escape. It is simply the next part of the cycle. In the village, one by one, the fires begin to lower. Not all at once. Each one fades in its own time. The glow becomes softer, then dimmer, then only a faint reminder of warmth. The land grows darker, but not empty. It fills instead with quiet presence. The presence of rest. The presence of pause. The presence of everything that does not need to move. Above, the sky is now fully open. Stars are clearer again, spread across the wide darkness in patterns that feel unchanging. They watch over the land without movement, without sound, without interruption. The Nile continues beneath them, flowing through the night just as it flowed through the day. Unchanged in its direction, unchanged in its purpose. Only the light has shifted. Everything else remains. Inside the homes, bodies settle into sleep. Breathing slows again. Muscles relax. Thoughts quiet without effort. There is no struggle in this rest. It comes naturally, as it always has. The same way it came the night before. And the night before that. Time continues, yes it? And as the night deepens, everything returns to the same calm state it has known for centuries. The same rhythm. The same order. The same steady world continuing forward without change. Softly. Quietly. Endlessly. The night deepens further. What remains of the village now feels almost like a memory resting inside the darkness. Shapes are still there, but softened. Homes, paths, fields, and riverbanks all blend gently into one quiet presence under the wide sky. The stars are fully visible now. They do not move in any way that can be seen with the eye. They simply exist, steady and distant, casting a faint, cool light across everything below. The Nile continues its slow passage through the night. It does not change its rhythm. The same current that moved through the heat of the day now moves through the cool of darkness. The river does not distinguish between hours. It only flows. Along its edges, reeds sway slightly in the faint breeze. Their movement is minimal, almost like breathing. In and out. Forward and back. A quiet repetition that mirrors everything else in this world. The land rests. Not in emptiness, but in completeness. Inside the homes, sleep continues without interruption. There are no sudden sounds, no disruptions, no breaks in the stillness. Rest is deep but simple, held gently by familiarity. Bodies remember how to rest here. They do not need to be taught each night. This too is part of the cycle. Just as the river flows. Just as the sun rises. Just as the fields are worked. Time moves forward, but never sharply. It does not cut or divide. It blends. Softly. Gradually. A faint change begins again, though it is still far from noticeable. The edge of the night, far on the horizon, begins to lighten in the smallest possible way. Not enough to be called morning. Not enough to change anything yet. Only enough to suggest that the cycle continues. It always continues. But for now, the village remains in deep night. The kind of night that feels full, not empty. A night that holds everything in stillness. The air is cool now. Cooler than before. It carries no urgency, no tension. It simply exists around everything, moving gently through open spaces and resting against still surfaces. The Nile reflects almost no light at this hour. It is darker than the sky above it, yet still present, still moving. A long, quiet thread through the land, connecting one part of the world to another without interruption. No one watches it now. But it remains watched, in a way that does not require eyes. A fisherman's boat sits tied near the shore. Empty now. Still. It will be used again when the morning returns. Just as it was used before. Just as it always has been. Nothing here is final. Nothing here is forgotten. Everything returns. In time, slowly, as it always does. A small sound breaks the silence briefly. Perhaps an animal shifting in sleep. Perhaps wind moving through dry grass. Perhaps nothing more than the land itself adjusting to the night. Then it fades again. The silence remains. Not fragile, but steady. The stars continue their quiet presence overhead. They do not grow brighter or dimmer in any sudden way. They remain consistent, forming the same familiar patterns that have guided generations without ever changing themselves. The people below do not speak of them in urgency. They simply live beneath them. As they always have. And as they always will. In this stillness, the land feels complete. Not finished. Not ending. Just existing in a state of balance. Where every part of life has its place. Where every moment has its rhythm. Where nothing needs to be added or removed for the world to feel whole. The night holds this balance gently. Without effort. Without interruption. And as time continues its quiet movement forward, the smallest hint of change begins again at the edge of the sky. Not yet morning. Not yet light. Only the beginning of return. The same return that has always come. And always will. Slowly. Naturally. Without end. The first light of return is still far away, but it begins in the smallest possible way. A faint grayness gathers at the edge of the horizon, so subtle it almost feels imagined. The stars above that part of the sky begin to soften, their sharpness fading just slightly, as if they are stepping back into distance. The night is not ending yet. But it is shifting. Very gently. The Nile reflects nothing of this change at first. It remains dark, steady, moving through the land as it always has. But slowly, the surface begins to hold a different tone. Not light. Not yet. Only a hint of space where light will soon return. Everything remains still. The village continues to rest. No one stirs in any noticeable way. Sleep holds its quiet presence across every home, across every street, across every familiar space shaped by daily life. The air is calm. Cool. Balanced. There is no urgency in it. Only continuity. Time passes in a way that cannot be measured here by sharp moments. It moves like water, like breath, like the slow repetition of existence itself. A distant rooster calls once. Then silence returns. The sound does not signal action yet. It is only part of the larger pattern, a small thread woven into the fabric of the night. The sky grows a fraction lighter. Still not morning. Still not even close. But no longer complete darkness. This in-between space is familiar, even if it is never named. It is the place where night and day gently overlap, where one has not fully left and the other has not fully arrived. In the village, nothing changes because of it. The people sleep as they always do. Deeply. Naturally. Without interruption. The land itself seems to rest with them. Fields lie still, already prepared for the next cycle of work that will begin again without question. Irrigation channels sit quietly in the earth, holding the memory of water that has passed through them and waiting for it to return. The river continues its slow movement beside everything. It does not pause for transitions. It does not mark endings or beginnings. It simply flows. As it has always done. And as it always will. A soft breeze moves through the trees near the riverbank. It is gentle enough that it does not disturb anything. Only passing through, only existing for a moment before fading again into stillness. The sky continues its slow change. The faint gray at the horizon becomes slightly wider now. The stars in that region fade a little more, though the rest of the sky remains dark and full. It is not yet dawn. But the direction is clear. The return is beginning. Inside one of the homes, a person shifts slightly in sleep. Not waking. Only adjusting. The body responds to changes in light and air even when the mind does not yet follow. This is part of the rhythm too. Even rest follows the cycle. Breathing remains slow. Steady. Unbroken. Outside, the Nile carries on. It reflects the sky in a way that feels almost weightless now, as if the darkness itself is thinning. But still, it remains night. The change is quiet enough that it does not demand attention. Only patience. Time continues. Without pressure. Without interruption. The village remains still, held in the final part of night. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the boundary between night and morning begins to soften further. Not breaking. Not ending. Only opening. Like something familiar preparing to begin again. The same cycle. The same return. The same gentle world continuing forward, unchanged in its nature, only shifting in its light. And within that shift, everything remains at peace. Quiet. Steady. Whole. The sky continues its quiet transformation. What was once deep night is now something softer, something that feels like waiting rather than ending. The darkness is still present, but it no longer feels complete. It begins to thin in wide, gentle layers across the horizon. Stars remain overhead, but their brightness is slightly softened in one direction. They do not vanish. They simply become less sharp, as if the air itself is changing around them. The Nile reflects this change in its own way. Not with light yet, but with suggestion. A faint difference in tone spreads across its surface. The water remains in motion, slow and steady, carrying the same rhythm it has carried through every hour of the night. There is no interruption in its flow. Only continuity. The village remains asleep. Homes rest in quiet formation along the land, their shapes steady and unchanged. Inside, breathing continues in slow rhythm. Sleep is deep, not fragile, not disturbed by the gradual shift of the sky. Nothing needs to wake yet. The world is not calling for urgency. Only for return. A distant sound appears again. A bird. Then another. Their calls are soft, spaced apart, not yet forming a chorus. They are part of the transition, small signals that the cycle is moving forward once more. Still, the village does not move. It remains held in rest. The air feels slightly cooler now, carrying the last fullness of night before warmth returns. It moves gently through open spaces, through reeds near the river, through the quiet gaps between homes. The land is in balance between two states. Not fully night. Not yet morning. This in-between space is familiar to everything here. The river knows it. The fields know it. Even the people, in their sleep, are shaped by it. Time continues forward, but softly. Without edges. Without pressure. The horizon grows lighter again. A wider band of pale gray now stretches across the edge of the world. It is not bright. It does not announce itself strongly. It simply exists, expanding slowly, as if it has always been there and is only now becoming visible. The stars in that section fade further. Not disappearing. Just withdrawing. The rest of the sky still holds darkness, but it is no longer absolute. In the village, a small shift happens. Not in action, but in presence. A few people begin to stir slightly in their sleep. Subtle movements. A turning of the body. A deeper breath before stillness returns. No one wakes fully. The night is still present. But the cycle is preparing itself. As it always does. The Nile continues its long, steady flow. It does not change with the sky. It does not rush toward morning. It simply carries the same movement through every moment, as if time itself is something that passes over it without altering its course. Near the shore, the outline of a boat becomes faintly more visible. It remains still, tied in place, waiting for the return of use. The wood is dark, softened by night, shaped by many days of work and water. It will move again soon. But not yet. Everything waits in its own way. The sky brightens another small step. The change is still gentle, almost invisible unless watched closely over time. But it is there. A steady return. The edge of night is slowly opening. Not breaking. Not ending. Opening. In the village, sleep continues. Deep. Familiar. Uninterrupted. The rhythm of breathing, the stillness of bodies, the quiet presence of rest all remain steady, woven into the cycle that has repeated for generations without deviation. The world does not rush them awake. It simply shifts around them. Patiently. Softly. As the horizon grows lighter still, the sense of space expands. Shapes begin to separate slightly from the darkness. The land is still mostly shadow, but it is no longer completely hidden. The transition is underway. But it remains calm. Balanced. Unforced. The Nile moves through it all without change. Always present. Always flowing. Always steady beneath the sky that transforms above it. And in this quiet unfolding, the night prepares to give way once more to the day that will follow it. As it always has. As it always will. The first true hint of morning begins to arrive, though it is still soft, still distant. The horizon no longer feels like a line separating night from day. Instead, it feels like a slow widening space where darkness is gently being held back. The sky does not change all at once. It changes in layers, like fabric being slowly unfolded. The stars are still present overhead, but fewer now in the direction of the coming light. They remain steady, unchanged in their positions, but their presence feels quieter, as if they are sharing space with something returning. The Nile reflects this moment in its own subtle way. Its surface is still dark, but not entirely. There is a faint suggestion of depth beneath the darkness, as though light is preparing to rise from within it. The river continues its movement without interruption. It does not anticipate the morning. It simply flows through it as it arrives. In the village, sleep remains unbroken. Homes are still, their shapes resting against the land like they belong to it completely. There is no separation between people and place at this hour. Everything feels held together by the same quiet stillness. Inside, breathing is slow and steady. Dreams pass without disturbance. Time continues, but it does not press. A slight change moves through the air. It is not warmth yet. Not light. Only a subtle shift in presence. The kind of change that is felt more than seen. The night is loosening its hold. Very gently. At the edge of the horizon, the gray band grows wider. It is now clearly visible, stretching further across the land, slowly pushing back the darkness. The stars closest to it fade a little more. Not disappearing. Just becoming less part of the immediate world. The rest of the sky still holds deep night, but it no longer feels complete. Something is returning. And it returns in the same way it always has. Without urgency. Without force. Only rhythm. The Nile remains steady. Its banks are still dark, but shapes along them begin to separate slightly from the night. Reeds, trees, the outlines of small structures, each one becoming faintly more distinct as the light prepares to rise. Everything is still resting. But everything is also preparing. Inside the homes, a few bodies shift again in sleep. A hand moves slightly. A breath deepens. Not waking. Only adjusting to the change in the world around them. The cycle continues to move forward. Quietly. Naturally. Without interruption. The sky brightens another small degree. Now the transition feels more present, though still gentle. The line between night and morning is not sharp. It is gradual, almost soft enough to feel like it is happening everywhere at once. The darkness does not resist. It simply recedes. The river reflects this shift with a faint, growing suggestion of light along its surface. Not yet sunrise. Not yet color. Only a change in depth, as if something beyond the sky is preparing to reveal itself. The village remains asleep. But the world around it is no longer fully night. The air feels clearer now. Slightly cooler. More open. As if space itself is becoming wider again. The rhythm of the cycle is reaching its familiar turning point. The same point it has reached countless times before. And will reach again. The horizon continues to lighten. The gray becomes softer, blending toward pale tones that hint at what is coming. The stars are fewer now in that direction, though still present above the darker parts of the sky. Everything is in transition. But nothing is rushed. Nothing is forced. The Nile continues its eternal flow through this quiet shift, carrying the memory of night even as morning begins to form. And the village, still resting in its deep and familiar sleep, remains held gently within the final moments before the day returns. As it always does. As it always will. The horizon begins to soften in a way that finally feels closer to morning than night. The gray light that has been gathering slowly now spreads more evenly, no longer confined to a thin edge of the sky. It moves outward in quiet layers, gently touching more of the land with its pale presence. The stars begin to fade further. Not all at once. But steadily. As if they are retreating one by one into distance rather than disappearing. The sky is still dim, but it is no longer deep darkness. It is something in between. A waiting sky. A sky that remembers night but is beginning to accept day. The Nile reflects this change more clearly now. Its surface, once almost entirely dark, begins to hold faint variations of tone. Not color yet. Just a subtle shift in contrast, as if the water is becoming aware of the light returning above it. It continues its slow movement, unbroken. Always the same direction. Always the same rhythm. In the village, sleep still holds most of the people. But the world around them is no longer fully still. A few early movements begin. A person turns in sleep and slowly opens their eyes, not yet fully awake. They lie still for a moment, listening. Not to sound, but to the feeling of change in the air. It is not urgency that wakes them. Only familiarity. The body recognizes the cycle before the mind fully understands it. Outside, the sky continues its slow transformation. The pale gray becomes slightly brighter now, blending with the first suggestion of soft blue. The darkness is still present above, but it is no longer dominant. The balance is shifting. The land begins to take shape again. Faint outlines of fields become visible. The river becomes more defined. Even the distant trees along the horizon begin to separate from the darkness, their form slowly returning. Everything is reappearing. Not suddenly, but as if it had always been there, simply waiting to be seen again. Inside the homes, more subtle movement begins. A hand reaches for a woven mat. A body adjusts position. Someone exhales deeply and opens their eyes fully for the first time. Still, there is no rush. No immediate action. Only awareness returning in stages. The Nile remains unchanged in its essence. But its surface now holds the faintest trace of reflection. Not of color yet, but of light itself beginning to form. The river carries this new presence gently, without altering its pace. It does not respond to morning. It simply continues. As it always has. The horizon brightens further. Now the shift is unmistakable. Night is no longer complete. Morning is no longer absent. They exist together for a short, quiet moment. One giving way to the other without resistance. The stars are now fewer and softer. The sky feels more open. More spacious. As if the world itself is taking a deeper breath after the stillness of night. In the village, the first true signs of waking begin. A door opens slowly. A figure steps outside and pauses. They do not move quickly. They simply stand for a moment, looking out at the land as it begins to return to visibility. The fields, the river, the distant shapes of trees all slowly becoming clear again. This is a familiar sight. Seen countless times. And yet still gentle enough to notice each day. The air is cool. Fresh in a way that only early morning can be. It carries no heat yet. Only calm. Only quiet continuation. The Nile reflects more light now. Still soft. Still early. But unmistakably shifting toward day. Its movement remains constant, carrying forward the same flow that has always defined it. The village begins to stir more fully. Not in sudden bursts. But in slow emergence. One by one, people begin to rise. Each following their own rhythm within the larger cycle that binds them all together. The day is not fully here yet. But it is no longer far away. It is arriving. As it always does. In the same gentle way. Without change. Without disruption. Only return. Morning arrives the way it always does here, without sharpness, without announcement, without anything that feels sudden. It simply becomes. The sky, once pale and uncertain, now holds a steadier light. Soft blue spreads across it, slowly pushing back what remains of the night. The last of the stars fade quietly, not as an ending, but as a retreat into distance. The land is visible again. Not all at once in full clarity, but in stages. First the river. Then the fields. Then the village, piece by piece, returning to sight as if it had never truly disappeared. The Nile is brighter now. Its surface carries the early light in a gentle reflection, still subdued, still calm. It does not sparkle or shine in urgency. It simply receives the morning as it always has, carrying it forward with steady motion. Along its banks, reeds stand upright again, more defined now. Small movements of wind pass through them, barely noticeable, but present enough to remind the land that it is awake. The village begins its full return to life. Doors open slowly. People step outside one by one. There is no rush in their movements. No surprise in their actions. Everything follows a rhythm already deeply known, already carried within them from years of repetition. A man pauses at the edge of his home and looks out across the fields. The same fields. The same river beyond them. The same horizon where the sun will rise fully in time. Nothing is new. And yet everything feels freshly present again. A woman begins preparing grain once more. Her hands find the tools without searching. The motions begin before thought fully forms. Grinding stone against grain. The steady sound returns, familiar and grounding. This sound marks the beginning of the day as it always has. It does not change. It does not need to. Children move into open spaces between homes. Their steps are slower at first, as sleep still lingers in their bodies. They watch the world reform itself around them. Light growing stronger. Shapes becoming clearer. Life resuming its usual form. There is comfort in this repetition. Comfort in knowing what comes next. The farmers begin walking toward the fields again. Their paths are unchanged. The same roots carved into the earth by countless footsteps before them. They do not need to decide where to go. Their bodies already know. The Nile continues its steady presence beside them all. It does not begin the day. It does not end the night. It simply moves through both. A constant line through time that never breaks. The sun begins to rise more clearly now. Its light grows warmer, stronger, spreading across the land in familiar stages. First touching the tops of distant fields. Then reaching the river. Then slowly filling the village with the soft gold of morning. Shadows return, but in reverse. Shortening instead of stretching. Gathering instead of expanding. Everything begins its daily rhythm again. Work. Movement. Sound. Rest becoming action once more. But nothing feels new. Because nothing is new. Only repeated. Only continued. A fisherman prepares his boat again. A woman carries water from the river again. A farmer checks the soil again. Each action fits into place as naturally as it did yesterday, and the day before, and the many days stretching far back into memory. Time does not break here. It circles. It flows. It returns. The Nile reflects the rising sun more fully now. Not in brightness that overwhelms, but in steady warmth that spreads gently across its surface. The river accepts this light as it always has, carrying it forward without resistance. The village is now fully awake. Not changed. Not altered. Only returned. The same patterns continue. The same movements unfold. The same quiet order holds everything in place. And as the sun rises higher into the sky, the day settles into its familiar shape once again. Steady. Predictable. Endlessly repeating. A world that does not rush forward into difference, but instead moves gently through the same living rhythm it has always known. The morning settles into its steady shape. The light grows a little stronger now, but it still carries a softness at its edges. It spreads across the land evenly, touching everything without urgency, as if it already knows exactly where it belongs. The fields are fully visible again. Rows of soil stretch outward, shaped by hands that have done this work many times before. The earth is neither new nor unfamiliar. It is simply what it has always been. A farmer walks slowly along the edge of an irrigation channel. He watches the water move through it, guiding it with small adjustments made by habit rather than thought. The flow responds gently, as it always does, spreading across the land in quiet obedience to the shape of the earth. There is no need for correction beyond small touches. No need for change beyond what time naturally brings. Everything here is built on repetition. The Nile continues beside it all. Its surface now reflects the full presence of morning light, but still without harshness. The water carries brightness in a softened form, breaking it into long, gentle lines that move with the current. A boat passes slowly in the distance. Its movement is unhurried. The person inside does not seem to be going anywhere in particular. There is only the act of moving along the river, as so many others have done before. The river does not question direction. It only carries movement forward. In the village, daily life continues its familiar unfolding. The sound of grinding grain returns again, steady and consistent. The smell of food begins to rise once more from small fires, drifting through the open air and blending with the scent of warm earth. People move between tasks without separation between them. Work is not a distinct moment. It is part of everything. A woman kneels near a low basin of water, washing a simple clay vessel. Her hands move slowly, rubbing away dust and residue. The object itself is unchanged by this act. It is simply being returned to its usual state. Clean. Ready. Familiar. Nearby, a child watches a man repair a woven net. The pattern of knots and threads is something the child has seen many times. There is no urgency in learning it. It is absorbed gradually, over time, through presence and observation. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is forced. Learning is not separate from life. It is part of it. The sun climbs higher into the sky, but still without harshness. It does not dominate the land. It simply illuminates it, revealing what was already there in the early light. Shadows shift slightly. The river glows more clearly now, but still carries the same calm movement it always has. Everything continues in balance. The same balance that has always existed. The same balance that does not need to be maintained consciously, because it is already part of the structure of life itself. A group of workers gathers briefly near the edge of a field. There is no formal meeting. Only shared presence. They look over the land, exchange a few quiet words, and then disperse again to continue their tasks. Each movement is simple. Each action fits naturally into the flow of the day. Nothing feels separate. Everything is connected through repetition. Through rhythm. Through time. The Nile remains constant. It does not reflect change in the way people might expect. Instead, it holds continuity. Morning light becomes stronger, but the river remains the same river it was in the night, and in the dawn before that, and in every morning that has ever come before this one. The village continues to move. Not forward in a sharp sense, but forward in a repeating cycle. A cycle that never truly ends. Only turns. Again and again. The air is now warmer, but still gentle. It carries the quiet energy of a day fully begun, yet not overwhelmed. Everything feels open, spacious, steady. There is time for work. Time for rest. Time for everything that belongs to the rhythm of this place. And as the morning continues to unfold, nothing resists its pattern. Nothing breaks from it. Everything simply continues. As it always has. As it always will. The day moves deeper into its steady middle hours. The sun is now higher, but it does not feel harsh. Its light spreads widely across the land, filling every space with a calm, even brightness. Shadows shorten, gather closer to the base of objects, and rest quietly beneath them. The fields are active again. Not in urgency, but in rhythm. Hands return to soil, water, and simple tools. The same motions repeat across different parts of the land, carried out by different people, yet all following the same quiet understanding. A farmer kneels beside a narrow irrigation channel. He adjusts a small ridge of earth with his fingers. The water shifts slightly in response, changing direction just enough to reach a new patch of soil. He watches it for a moment, then continues walking. There is no need to stay longer. The system is already in motion. It continues on its own, guided by small, familiar corrections. The Nile flows beside it all. Its surface now holds a steady brightness, reflecting the full presence of the sun without glare or disturbance. The movement of the water remains unchanged, steady, and unbroken, carrying everything forward in its long, patient course. A boat passes farther out. Its silhouette is clear against the light now. The person inside moves slowly, almost blending into the rhythm of the river itself. There is no separation between task and environment. Only participation in the flow. In the village, life continues in layers. Some people are fully engaged in work. Others are resting briefly in shaded areas. Others move between the two without clear distinction. Time here does not divide itself sharply. It overlaps. It blends. A woman sits near the side of a home, weaving plant fibers together into a mat. Her hands follow a pattern that does not change. Over. Under. Over. Under. The motion repeats so many times that it becomes part of the surrounding stillness. Even activity can feel quiet when it is familiar enough. Nearby, a child helps carry small containers of water. The weight is light, but the responsibility feels important in its own way. The child walks carefully, watching the balance of each step, learning without being told directly. No instruction is needed. Only repetition. Only presence. The sun continues its slow arc. It does not feel like time is passing quickly or slowly. It simply feels like it is moving in its expected path, the same path it has always followed. The river reflects this consistency. No change in direction. No interruption in flow. Only the quiet certainty of movement that has no beginning or end. A group of workers gathers briefly in the shade of a structure. They drink water, rest, and exchange a few words. The conversation is calm, unimportant in tone but meaningful in presence. It is not about new ideas or urgent matters. It is about continuation. About maintaining what already exists. After a short time, they return to their tasks. Without delay. Without resistance. The cycle does not pause for long. It only shifts. As the afternoon slowly approaches, the light begins to soften again. Not dramatically. Just enough to be noticed. The heat eases slightly, and the air feels less dense than it did at midday. Movement becomes a little slower, a little more relaxed, as the natural rhythm of the day begins its gradual turn toward evening. The Nile remains unchanged. Even as light shifts above it, the river continues as it always has. It does not respond to the hour. It does not adjust its pace. It simply flows through all of it. Constant. Unbroken. Reliable. In the village, the sound of work continues, but with a gentler tone. Fewer sharp movements. More steady ones. The sense of completion for the day begins to form quietly, even though the day is not yet over. This feeling is not sudden. It builds slowly. Like the changing light. like the cooling air. Like everything else in this place. Nothing here changes abruptly. Everything transitions. Everything flows. And so the world continues in its familiar rhythm, carrying forward the same patterns that have shaped it for generations, unchanged in their essence, only repeating in endless, quiet motion. The afternoon light begins its slow descent toward evening. It is not immediate, not dramatic. The change arrives in layers, almost imperceptible at first. The brightness softens slightly, as if the sun itself has begun to lower its voice over the land. Shadows stretch again. Longer than before. Not sharp, but gentle, like soft lines drawn across the earth. In the fields, work continues, though the pace has naturally eased. The strongest heat has passed, and with it, the most demanding part of the day. Now movement feels lighter, more familiar, as if the land and the people together are beginning to settle into the final rhythm of daylight. A farmer walks slowly along a row of crops. He pauses, looking down at the soil. It is familiar in its texture, familiar in its response. Nothing surprises him. Nothing feels uncertain. He adjusts a small section of earth with a simple motion of his hand, then continues on. There is no urgency in finishing. Only continuation until the day completes itself. The Nile flows beside him, unchanged in its patient movement. The water reflects the shifting sky, now carrying warmer tones again as the sun lowers. The surface does not resist the change. It simply receives it, as it always has. A boat moves across the river at a steady pace. Its silhouette is darker now against the fading brightness. The person inside rows gently, each motion slow and practiced, as if guided more by memory than effort. The river does not hurry them. It never does. In the village, the rhythm begins to soften further. The sounds of work become less frequent. The sharpness of activity fades into something more even, more continuous. People begin to complete tasks rather than start new ones. A woman gathers woven materials and sets them aside. A man finishes adjusting a tool and rests it in its place. A child carries water back toward a home and slows their steps as they arrive. Everything begins to settle. Not stopping. Just easing. The sun lowers further in the sky. Its light grows warmer, casting a soft golden tone across the fields, the river, and the village. This light does not feel like an ending yet. But it carries the feeling of completion within it. The kind of light that has been seen countless times before, always signaling the same transition from day into evening. The Nile reflects this warmth in long, quiet bands. The water is still moving, still flowing, still unchanged in its nature. But the way it holds light now is different. Softer. Deeper. More reflective. Along the riverbank, reeds sway gently in the light breeze that returns with the cooling air. Their movement is small, almost subtle, blending into the larger stillness of the landscape. In the village, people begin to turn their attention back toward home. Not all at once. Not in response to instruction. But in shared understanding. The day is nearing its natural close. And so movement shifts accordingly. A farmer begins the walk back from the field. Then another. And another. Each step is familiar. Each path is the same as it was the day before, and the day before that, and all the days that came before. There is comfort in this repetition. In knowing exactly where the path leads. In knowing it will always lead there. The sky continues to change. Orange deepens near the horizon. Soft gold fades into warmer tones that spread outward across the sky in slow layers. The light becomes more diffuse, less direct, more atmospheric. The village begins to glow in this fading sunlight, not brightly, but gently, as if everything is being held for a moment before night arrives. The Nile reflects this transformation in a long, quiet line that stretches across its surface. Everything remains in motion, but everything also begins to rest. The cycle is approaching its familiar turning point again. The same turning point it has always reached. The same turning point it will always reach. Without interruption. Without change. Only continuation. Evening approaches without urgency. The light does not fall away quickly. Instead, it softens step by step, as if the day is carefully setting itself down after a long and steady journey. The sky holds warm tones for a little longer, stretching them gently across the horizon before letting them fade. The fields grow quieter. Not empty. Just still in a different way. Work is no longer expanding outward. It is narrowing now, returning inward, toward completion. Tools are carried back. Hands grow less active. Movements become fewer, but each one feels deliberate, as if nothing is wasted. A man walks slowly along the edge of an irrigation channel. He looks at the water for a moment. It continues to flow, unchanged, unaffected by the slowing of human activity around it. He does not alter it. There is no need. The system remains in balance on its own. The Nile, as always, continues beside everything. Its surface now holds deeper reflections of the evening sky. The brightness of earlier hours has softened into a gentle glow that moves with the water's surface. Small ripples carry the fading light in fragments, breaking it into long, quiet shapes that drift and reform endlessly. A boat near the far bank moves very slowly now. Almost drifting rather than traveling. The person inside guides it with minimal motion, letting the river do most of the work. There is no urgency to reach anywhere. The journey itself is part of the day's rhythm, not something separate from it. In the village, the transition toward evening becomes more visible. People gather what they need and begin moving back toward their homes. Not in groups. Not in coordination. But in parallel rhythm, as if each person is following the same unseen understanding of time. A woman folds a woven mat and places it carefully inside her home. A child washes their hands in a basin of water that has already cooled with the lowering sun. A man sits briefly outside, watching the changing sky before standing again and walking inside. Each action feels small. But together, they form the closing of the day. The sun lowers closer to the horizon now. Its light becomes richer in color, shifting toward deep gold and soft orange, stretching across the land in long, quiet gradients. The fields take on a warm tone, as if holding on to the last memory of daylight. Shadows grow longer again. They return in the opposite direction of the morning, slowly reaching outward, reclaiming space across the ground. The Nile reflects this shift with calm continuity. It does not change its pace. It does not alter its course. It simply carries the fading light forward, just as it carried the morning light hours before. Everything remains steady. Everything remains familiar. Inside the village, fires begin to appear again. Small points of warmth emerging as evening approaches more fully. They are not large or bright at first, only enough to gather people gently around them as the air begins to cool. Smoke rises slowly, blending into the evening air without disturbance. The scent of cooked food returns once more. Simple. Known. Repeated. The sky deepens further. Warm colors begin to fade, replaced by softer tones that prepare the world for night. The transition is gradual, almost unnoticeable unless watched closely over time. And yet it always arrives. Without failure. Without change in pattern. The Nile darkens slightly in response to the shifting light above it. Not in itself, but in reflection. It remains the same river it has always been, carrying water forward in its endless, steady motion. A fisherman's boat rests near the shore again. Still. Quiet. Its journey for the day complete. Inside the village, people settle more fully into evening routines. Meals are shared in dimming light. Voices are lower now. Movements slower. There is no sense of beginning or ending in this moment. Only continuation. Only rhythm. The world does not pause. It simply transforms. And as the last strong light of the sun begins to leave the horizon, everything feels gently held in place once more, ready for the return of night that will come just as it always has. Softly. Naturally. Without interruption. The final light of the day lingers a little longer before it fades. It does not disappear quickly. Instead, it stretches itself thin across the horizon, like something gently letting go but not fully leaving yet. The colors soften with each passing moment, moving from warm gold into deeper shades of amber and quiet red. The village grows stiller. Not suddenly, but in gradual stages. Work has ended, but the feeling of completion does not arrive all at once. It settles slowly into the land, into the people, into the air itself. Fires glow more clearly now. Small, steady points of light scattered through the village, each one holding a quiet space against the growing dusk. The smoke rises straight at first, then drifts gently as the evening air cools. The Nile darkens again, but it does not lose its presence. It becomes more reflective in a different way now. Less about color, more about depth. The movement of water continues beneath the fading light, steady and unbroken. A boat near the shore rocks slightly with the current. No one moves inside it now. It rests as if it has become part of the river itself, held gently in place by water and time. In the village, people gather closer to their homes. Not in response to anything urgent, but because the day naturally leads them there. A woman sits near a fire, watching bread bake slowly in the low heat. The glow of the flame reflects softly on her hands. Everything about this moment feels familiar. Repeated. Known. A child leans against an adult, eyes growing heavier as the warmth of the evening surrounds them. There is no effort in this transition. Only a quiet shift from movement into rest. The sky above continues to deepen. The warm colors near the horizon fade into darker tones, while the upper sky begins to fill again with early stars. They appear slowly, one by one, as if returning to their place after a long absence. But they were never gone. Only hidden by light. Now they return, steady and familiar, marking the beginning of night. The Nile reflects these changes in long, broken lines of faint light and shadow. The surface is calm, carrying everything forward without interruption. It does not change its rhythm. It never does. Inside the village, conversations grow quieter. Not because they end, but because they naturally soften. Words become fewer. Pauses become longer. Silence becomes more present between them. And this silence is not empty. It is full. Full of the day that has passed. Full of the repetition that defines life here. Full of the certainty that tomorrow will follow the same path. A man sits at the edge of his home, looking out across the darkening fields. He does not need to think about what comes next. He already knows. The fields will rest. The river will flow. The sun will rise again. And the same patterns will return. As they always do. As they always have. The last light of the sun finally slips below the horizon. Not in a single moment. But in a slow fading that feels more like a quiet exhale than an ending. What remains is the afterglow. A soft memory of brightness held briefly in the sky before night fully takes its place. The Nile now reflects mostly darkness, with only faint traces of light remaining along its surface. Yet it continues to move, unchanged in its course, carrying the same rhythm through night as it did through day. The village settles further into evening. Fires dim slightly but continue to burn. People rest more fully now, their bodies easing into the familiar comfort of night. There is no disruption in this transition. No resistance. Only acceptance. Only repetition. Only the steady movement of time that never feels broken. The sky deepens further. Stars become clearer. The world becomes quieter. And everything returns once more to the calm stillness that holds it together, just as it always has, just as it always will. Night settles fully now, without hesitation. The last traces of sunset are gone, leaving only a deep, steady darkness stretched across the sky. It is not heavy. It does not feel empty. It feels complete, as if the world has simply returned to its other half. The stars are fully present again. They appear in quiet abundance, scattered across the sky in patterns that do not shift or change. They do not demand attention. They simply exist, steady and distant, watching over the land as they always have. The Nile moves beneath them. Its surface is now almost entirely dark, but still alive with motion. The water does not stop for night. It continues its slow passage through the land, carrying the memory of the day within its flow. Along its edges, the reeds are barely visible now, blending into the darkness. Yet they still move slightly with the wind, continuing their quiet rhythm even in shadow. The village is at rest. Not silent in absence, but silent in presence. Fires remain as small points of light, scattered gently through the darkness. Around them, people sit or lie down in calm stillness. Conversations have faded now into quiet pauses, and those pauses have become silence. This is the hour where the day no longer reaches forward. And the night has fully taken its place. Inside the homes, sleep begins again. It does not arrive suddenly. It comes in stages, just as everything else does here. A body relaxes slowly. Breathing deepens. Thoughts soften. And one by one, people drift into the familiar stillness of rest. There is no fear in this transition. No resistance. Only the comfort of repetition. Only the trust that morning will come again. Outside, the Nile continues without change. It does not sleep. It does not pause. It simply flows through the night, as it flows through the day, unchanged in its nature, steady in its path. A faint breeze passes over the water. It creates small ripples that move outward, gently breaking the reflection of the stars into soft fragments that appear and disappear across the surface. Everything remains in motion. But nothing feels rushed. Time moves, but it does not press. It surrounds everything evenly, like water filling a space without disturbance. The village is now fully still. Fires glow low. Shadows rest deeply across the ground. The shapes of homes, trees, and fields are softened by darkness, yet still present, still known. This is a different kind of visibility. Not of light, but of familiarity. Even without seeing clearly, everything is understood. Everything is remembered. And so the night continues. Not as an interruption, but as part of the same endless cycle. The same rhythm that has shaped this land for centuries. The same rhythm that begins again without needing to be called. The sky remains vast above. The stars remain unchanged. The river continues its endless flow. And beneath it all, life rests in quiet balance, waiting not for change, but for continuation. As it always has. As it always will. Softly. Steadily. Without end. The night holds steady, deep, and complete. There is no movement in the sky that feels urgent. The stars remain fixed in their familiar arrangement, each one distant and quiet, offering light that is soft rather than bright. The Nile continues its endless flow beneath them. It does not change in response to darkness. It does not slow or pause. It simply moves, as it has always moved, carrying the same quiet presence through every hour of every day. Along its banks, the land rests fully now. Fields lie still, their soil cool and undisturbed. Irrigation channels hold no active water movement at this hour, yet they remain shaped and ready, waiting for the return of morning use without question. Everything is in a state of pause. But not emptiness. The village is quiet, but not absent of life. Inside the homes, sleep deepens further. It is not fragile sleep. It is steady, familiar, shaped by repetition and routine. People rest in the same positions they have rested in countless nights before. There is no uncertainty in this rest. Only continuation. Only the trust that the cycle will remain unbroken. A faint sound passes briefly through the night. Perhaps wind shifting through dry reeds. Perhaps a distant animal moving near the river. Perhaps nothing more than the land adjusting itself quietly within the dark. It appears, and then it fades. The silence remains. But it is not a silent void. It is full of presence. Full of time. Full of everything that continues even when unseen. The Nile reflects the stars faintly now, though the reflection is broken by gentle movement across its surface. The water never becomes still, even in the calmest hours. It resists stillness not through force, but through nature. Movement is its identity. And so it continues. A small boat remains tied near the riverbank. It shifts slightly with the current, never leaving its place, never breaking free. It will remain there until morning returns, when activity begins again as it always does. Nothing here is lost tonight. It is only paused within it. Above, the sky remains unchanged. No new stars appear. No old ones disappear. The same arrangement holds, the same quiet order that has existed for generations beyond counting. Time passes, but it does not alter them. It only moves beneath them. In the village, the last visible signs of firelight begin to dim further. Not extinguished. Just lowered. The glow becomes softer, merging more fully with the surrounding darkness until it feels like part of the night itself rather than separate from it. People sleep more deeply now. Breathing slows. The body becomes still. And the mind drifts into the same familiar quiet that has come every night before this one. There is no break in this pattern. No deviation. Only the gentle passing of hours. The Nile continues. The land rests. The sky remains open and wide. And everything exists in a balanced stillness that does not need to be maintained, because it has always maintained itself. The night moves forward without resistance. Not toward an ending, but toward the same beginning it always returns to. Slowly. Quietly. Continuously. The night begins to loosen its hold, not suddenly, but in the smallest possible ways. At first, it is only a suggestion at the edge of the horizon. A slight thinning of darkness, so faint it almost feels like imagination. The stars above that distant edge seem a little softer, their brightness gently reduced as if the sky is beginning to turn inward. The Nile continues its steady movement through this quiet transition. It does not react. It does not anticipate. It simply flows, carrying the same rhythm through every moment, whether the sky is dark or slowly beginning to change. Along its banks, the land remains still. Fields are quiet, resting in their familiar positions. The soil holds the memory of the day before, and the promise of the day ahead, without needing to distinguish between them. Everything is in balance. Everything is waiting, without effort. Inside the village, sleep continues deeply. But even in sleep, there is subtle awareness of change. Bodies shift slightly, not in waking, but in response to the slow return of light and air. A hand relaxes. A breath deepens. Stillness remains unbroken. Yet the world outside is already beginning its return. The sky at the horizon grows a little lighter. Not enough to be called morning. Not enough to end the night. Only enough to mark the beginning of transition. The Nile reflects this change in the faintest way. A slight lifting of tone across its surface. Not brightness. Not color. Only a subtle shift that moves with the water, as if the river is carrying the first memory of dawn. The village remains quiet. No fires are newly lit. No movement has begun yet. This is the space between. The place where night has not fully ended, and morning has not fully arrived. It is a familiar space here. One that returns every day without surprise. The sky continues to open slowly. Darkness does not leave all at once. It withdraws in layers, gently giving way to lighter tones that spread across the horizon like soft unfolding fabric. Stars in that region fade slightly more. Not disappearing. Just becoming less immediate. The rest of the sky still holds night fully. But the change has begun. And it will not stop. The Nile remains unchanged in its essence. But its reflection now carries a hint of separation between water and sky, as if space itself is beginning to expand again. Inside the homes, sleep continues. Still deep. Still calm. Still unbroken by anything sudden. But the rhythm of rest is already aligned with the rhythm of the world outside it. A cycle that does not need instruction. Only time. The horizon grows brighter again. A soft gray returns, wider now than before, spreading steadily across the edge of the world. The night is no longer complete. But it has not yet fully released its hold. It lingers. Gently. Like something familiar preparing to step aside. The Nile flows through this moment without pause. It does not mark the transition. It simply exists within it. As it always does. The village remains still, but the air begins to feel slightly different. Slightly cooler. Slightly more open. As if the world itself is preparing to breathe again. And in this quiet shift, the endless cycle moves forward, just as it always has, carrying night gently toward morning without ever breaking its calm rhythm. The horizon grows a little brighter now, though the change is still gentle enough to feel almost uncertain. Night is not gone. It still holds most of the sky in its familiar darkness. But at the edge of the world, something softer begins to gather. A pale suggestion of light spreads slowly, as if the land itself is remembering how to see again. The Nile reflects this shift in quiet ways. Its surface remains dark overall, but faint variations begin to appear, subtle differences in tone that move with the water. It is still night upon the river, but no longer the deepest part of night. The transition is underway. And it does not hurry. In the village, sleep continues undisturbed. The homes remain still, their shapes resting in the dim light of early pre-dawn. Inside, people remain in deep rest, held gently within the final hours of night. There is no need for waking yet. The world is not calling sharply. Only gradually. Only softly. The sky continues to open along the horizon. The gray light grows wider, spreading outward like a quiet breath. The stars near this region begin to fade more noticeably now, though they remain bright above the darker parts of the sky. It is not disappearance. It is distance. The feeling of something slowly stepping back. The Nile moves through this change without altering its rhythm. It does not respond to light or darkness. It simply continues, carrying water through every shift of the sky with the same steady presence it has always held. Along its banks, shapes begin to return faintly. Reeds, trees, the outlines of paths and fields all slowly becoming more visible as darkness loosens its hold. Everything is still. But everything is also becoming visible again. Inside the village, there is a subtle change in presence. Not waking. Not yet. But a quiet responsiveness to the shift in the world outside. A hand turns slightly. A breath deepens. The body, even in rest, follows the rhythm of the land. The sky grows brighter at the horizon. The transition is now unmistakable. Night is giving way. But not abruptly. It is unfolding, as it always does, in gradual and familiar stages. The Nile reflects a faint increase in light. Still not sunrise. Still not color. Only the first hint that morning is approaching again. The village remains quiet. But the stillness now carries a different quality. Less heavy. More open. As if space itself is widening once more. The stars continue to fade in the direction of the coming light. They remain elsewhere in the sky, unchanged and steady, but the edge of night is thinning. The cycle moves forward. Always forward. Without interruption. Without deviation. In the homes, sleep continues for a little longer. But it is nearing its natural end. Not because it is forced to end. But because the world itself is changing around it. The Nile flows steadily through this in-between moment. Neither night nor morning fully defining it. Only movement. Only continuity. The horizon grows lighter again. The gray begins to soften toward pale tones, suggesting the return of full daylight in time. But for now, everything remains in transition. Quiet. Familiar. Balanced. The land waits without tension. The river flows without change. And the night gently prepares to release its hold, just as it has done countless times before, and will do again. Softly. Naturally. Without end. The first suggestion of dawn becomes more certain now. It is no longer just a faint idea at the edge of the sky. The light has grown, slowly but steadily, spreading wider across the horizon. The darkness is still present above, but it is no longer complete. It feels thinner, as if it is being gently lifted rather than removed. The Nile reflects this change in a quiet, steady way. Its surface now holds a clearer gradient between dark water and pale sky. Not yet bright. Not yet warm. But no longer fully night. The river carries this in-between light as it carries everything else without resistance, without interruption. It simply continues. In the village, sleep begins to loosen. Not abruptly. Not all at once. But in small, natural stages. A person shifts in bed, turning slightly toward the growing light. Another opens their eyes briefly, then closes them again, resting in that space between sleep and waking. The transition is gentle. Familiar. Known. The sky brightens further along the horizon. The gray light now spreads more evenly, softening the edge between night and morning. The stars closest to this region fade more noticeably, though they remain strong in the darker parts of the sky above. They are not gone. Only retreating. As they always do. The Nile continues its flow through this quiet shift. Its movement is unchanged, steady, and patient. The water does not respond to the sky. It does not hurry toward morning or linger in night. It simply moves forward, as it has always done. Along the banks, the shapes of the land are now more visible. Reeds stand clearer against the growing light. The outlines of fields and paths become easier to see. The world is slowly returning to detail. But nothing is sudden. Everything arrives gradually. Inside the village, the first signs of waking begin again. A door opens softly. A figure steps outside and pauses, standing still for a moment in the cool early air. They do not move immediately. They simply observe the familiar return of morning light. This moment is not new. It has happened countless times before. And yet it is still noticed. Still felt. Still understood. The sky continues its slow transformation. Pale gray deepens toward soft blue, though the colors remain muted for now. The night still holds much of the upper sky, but it is steadily receding. The Nile reflects more light now. Still gentle. Still early. But unmistakably closer to day. Inside the homes, more people begin to wake. Not with urgency. But with quiet awareness. The body recognizes the cycle before thought fully forms. This rhythm is not learned each day. It is remembered. The village remains calm as it transitions. No sharp movement. No sudden change. Only gradual return. The fields beyond begin to emerge more fully now. Soil, channels, and distant trees all take clearer shape as the light grows. The land is once again becoming visible in its full familiar form. The river remains central to everything. Unchanged. Steady. Present in every hour, every shift, every transition between night and day. And as the horizon brightens further, the world moves gently into morning once more, continuing the cycle it has always known, without interruption, without departure, without end. The morning fully arrives now, quietly completing the long return from night. The light spreads across the land in its familiar way, gentle and steady, filling the spaces that were once held by darkness. The sky opens into soft blue, and the horizon becomes clear again, as if nothing had ever been hidden at all. The Nile moves through this moment unchanged. It does not mark endings or beginnings. It only flows. The same water, the same rhythm, the same endless passage through land and time. In the village, life resumes its familiar shape. Not as something new, but as something continued. People wake, rise, and begin again the small, steady patterns that have always defined their days. Fire is lit. Grain is ground. Water is carried. Fields are walked. Everything returns to motion, not because it stopped, but because it paused. And now it continues. The world of ancient Egypt does not feel like a place of constant change. It feels like a place of return. A place where life moves in wide, slow circles. Where the same river flows. The same sun rises. The same fields are tended. The same homes hold rest each night and activity each day. Generations come and go, but the patterns remain. Not frozen. Not stagnant. But steady. Held together by rhythm rather than transformation. By repetition rather than disruption. The Nile remains at the center of it all. Carrying water. Carrying soil. Carrying life itself across centuries without altering its path. And the people live within that flow, shaping their days around what has always been there. Not resisting it. Not changing it. But moving with it. As the morning settles fully into its quiet strength, the village continues its day just as it always has, and just as it always will. The same sky above. The same river beside them. The same gentle cycle turning forward without end. And in that endless repetition, life feels not hurried, not fractured, but whole. Complete in its continuity. Soft in its persistence. And quietly eternal in its unchanging rhythm.